Hello, 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 everyone. It's Coach Sherry, and I'm coming today with the tip that's been produced by a woman that I truly like and love. And I always say I have to give credit to myself for passing the exam, but Dr. Pam, she is amazing. And with that being said, I'm coming today with a tip that she and other staff of this tutoring company has come together to make sure that you learn and basically overcome that fear that you have. And so I'm an LCSW in the state of Tennessee. And prior to that, I was a licensed advanced practice social worker. And prior to that, I was an LMSW, and you have to hear my phenomenal story. And I don't have time for that today, but most definitely what I want to share with you is that after working with Dr. Pam, what I recognized was that I had a lot of things going on in my life. And she helped me understand that truly deep down in my head, I was like, oh, I'm resilient. But she put it in a perspective of, hey, when you're taking this exam, number one, your mind must be free, fresh, and clear. And so the other thing that she helped me understand was truly how to understand this exam. And so, with that being said, I'm going to bring to you all today clinical practice questions. And again, this is academic world coaching for people like you. Dr. Pam look at us as world changers. And what she really taught me, and it was something I knew, but she was like that the outside voice that I had in my head, but I needed to hear it from somebody else. You know, like when your parents just tell you not to do something, you hear another parent say it and you did it. But she said, invest in yourself because you are worth it. So again, this is coming to you today from Academic Coaching for World Changers. That's you. Because once you invest in this, you will become a world changer. You're helping people from every sector in life. So, one thing you will learn that if you ever work with Dr. Pam, and if you don't, you have the opportunity now by listening to this short video. There's a thing called the social work helping process. Yes, I used it on my exam, and I promise you, it was really a helping process. So, like when you go in the exam room and they give you the whiteboard, I wrote APIET. And as a private tutor with Dr. Pam, I always use this with my students, a PIT. Again, we don't really like to teach a lot of acronyms. It can become convoluted, but occasionally they are used. The social worker helping process, in essence, is a assessment, asking questions, something that you always do or should be doing with any client, whether you're a case manager, a licensed clinical social worker, a licensed master social worker, bachelor's level, whatever. And then you plan with them, not for them, because you want to help them through this process. And then the two of you identify interventions, and then you evaluate the intervention, and then you terminate. Remember, we should not be keeping our clients forever. Can it happen? It can. Is it best practice? Maybe, maybe not. Everybody's situation is a little different. But remember, there are some areas where it's just brief therapy. Just think about it. A hospital is short term, they're in and out. The process of termination starts at the beginning. EAP, you may only be approved for 4 sessions. So you have to start that process in the beginning of terminating. So let's go to the next slide here. So this is Dr. Pam all the way. It is a reading test. I cannot talk like her. I'm just a Southern girl from Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, but I will tell you it's a reading test. One of the things that I do, and when I was preparing for my LCSW, I used a book by Don Apgar. I read that book front to back during the time that I was obtaining my clinical supervision hours. Was it a hard read? Initially, I thought it was, but when you use CBT or just change the way you think, it wasn't a hard read. It was just content that I didn't understand. I was using it every day in my work life, but I wasn't. perhaps I was using it the correct way, or it was things that I was learned, that was taught to me through action, but um, not reinforced with reading. So it is a reading test, and I'm going to read this. A social worker is working with a second grade child who is having trouble staying in her seat in the classroom. The social worker, in conjunction with the teacher, indicates that the immediate objective is that the child will remain seated after being reminded to do so by the teacher while in the classroom. The social worker's supervisor, after reviewing the objective, would judge it to be: is it A, adequate as it addresses the target problem, B, inadequate as it puts too much responsibility on the teacher, C, adequate since the teacher was involved in the process, or D, inadequate as it lacks some elements of a measurable objective. So let's go through this thing and break it down. We have a social worker who's working with a second grade child. Remember, we should know who we are working with, and we should know what type of social worker this is. That child is having trouble staying in her seat. It's a little girl not able to sit in her seat in the classroom. So we bring the social worker back up again in conjunction with the teacher. So now the social worker and the teacher, because the word conjunction means work together, indicates the immediate objective. So if you think about it, the objective is going to be, how are we going to change this thing with this student? And so the objective is that the child will remain seated after being reminded to do so by the teacher while in the classroom. So the social worker and the teacher has come together and say, let's try to come up with a way to get this little girl to sit in her seat, but we'll be reminding her. So the social worker supervisor, now we have another person coming in, and there's a supervision section in APGAR book, and there's supervision all over the exam. But the social worker supervisor, after reviewing the objective, would judge it to be. So I'm gonna give you time to look over it, those answers again. Remember, write A, B, C, D on your paper. Read each answer choice, cross out two and keep two. And the two that you keep, you're going to insert them back in that vignette to see if it really matches. Give you all time. A. A social worker is working with a second grade child who is having trouble staying in her seat in the classroom. In conjunction with the teacher, the social worker indicates the immediate objective is that the child will remain seated after being reminded to do so by the teacher while in the classroom. The social worker's supervisor, after reviewing the objective, would judge it to be. So I gave you an opportunity to read all four answers, right? And again, this is Dr. Pam, the leading expert material. You all looked at it. I'm giving you a chance to look at it again. Yeah, you're really, will you hurry up, Coach Sherry? You took away two. I hope you did. And this is best practice. Please always do that, even the day of the exam. Write all your questions, your numbers down, A, B, C, D. Remember, some of your choices are only going to be A, B, C, but that's okay too. We're getting close to the answer. There we go again. A social worker is working with that second grade child who is having trouble staying in her seat. I'm not going to go through it again because now you all should know what the answer is. Yeah, anticipation is really hard, isn't it? I want to go over something before I actually give you the answer, all right? So, when you're doing anything, and this thing is called SMART, I want to share that I have a agency that once was a nonprofit and now it's a for-profit. But needless to say, I worked with a cohort. I was actually cohort number one when COVID hit because I was having problems with my nonprofit. And I learned about SMART. So, SMART is actually a business method that has been actually implemented into the social worker world, like some other things. I don't know if you all know that motivational interviewing actually started with alcohol and drug use, substance abuse, that is now integrated into the social worker world. So, that was just a tidbit I gave you. But let's get back to SMART. So with SMART, it's going to always be something that it's very specific, okay? So that's when you're making your goal. You got to focus on, hey, what do I want to see change and how can I make that change occur? And then it's got to be measurable, right? And so anything you measure, if you all know, the thing that we really don't like as social workers is that research stuff. But in research, a lot of times you have the AB or the ABAB design, which are single subject designs. So you have to make sure that your item is measurable, meaning that you can make sure the goal is measurable. Is it something real? Is it something that you're going to really get some results out of? If you know there's heavy traffic in a certain area in your city, and if you think that putting stop signs up is going to be beneficial, I think we know where we're going with this. That's going to be measurable. You're going to be able to see prior to there was a lot of incidents or accidents happening. Once you put the stop signs up, maybe with the flashing light on it, the incidents stop. Not as many, it reduces, so it's measurable. You'll find out where we're going with the question you all just had. Is it achievable? That's the A in SMART. We're still talking about the SMART, where you make sure it's reasonable. And then is it accomplish your goal within a certain time frame? Remember, anything that we're doing, there are some longitudinal studies out there, but for the most part, we want to make sure it's something that's attainable in whatever time frame we have set. A lot of times, especially in research, things could be in research for like 5 years, right? Or even a little bit longer. But you don't want to take it too long because you want to get that information out there, whether it's for medicine or for changes or whatever, but it becomes evidence-based. But is it achievable? And then relevant. And in some other smart things, if you Google them, you may not always see the word relevant. You may see reliable. Those words are used interchangeably. So your goals should be aligned with your values and long-term objectives. And then time-based. Time-based is you set the realistic uh date for clarification. So like I said earlier, you got to put a time frame to everything when it comes to whatever, do I want to look at this for 6 weeks? Do I want to look at this for 3 years? But in this case, we have a little girl in school. And for the most part, there are not a whole lot of schools out there that are year round. There so many months out of the year. And remember, you got summer breaks, spring breaks, fall breaks. So you want to put a reasonable time in there based off of what's going on with the situation. I hope you really learned something about SMART today. So we're going to go into some more information here. And so remember, Dr. Pam requires proof in the words of the question. And so that's why I said earlier, when you broke down two, you took away two, and you kept two, insert them back into the vignette to see if it was going to be adequate, if it sounds like it was even close to going in there. So we have dun, 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 dun. The answer is D. A social worker is working with a second grade child who is having trouble staying in her seat in the classroom. We broke this down already. She not sitting in her seat. The social worker and the teacher works together, and they indicate the immediate objective is that the child will remain seated after being reminded to do so by the teacher. Now you have the social worker who her supervisor comes in and looks over the social worker's objective. And after she review it, she says, I'm sorry, this is inadequate as it lacks some elements of a measurable objective. So we talked about this SMART, and I just gave you a few minutes, and I hope this really helped. If you did not get it, go back through it again. We really want you to understand content. And also, I'm a preacher of preaching, and I do have a minor in religion, which I really don't practice it. But I like to always say questions aren't always the way to learn things. Really, if you understand your method of learning and you sense there's a blockage, you probably do need private tutoring, right? Not here trying to sell anything, but if you know how to sit and read a book by yourself, please read it and get all content. This is a supervision question, along with a little bit of understanding how you measure things, which again is like that single subject design type thing, but it's more of a supervision question. So find your book or whatever book you have. I don't say go buy any more material. Look in the content of the book to see if there's a section focusing on supervision, and understand what supervision is putting out there so that you can better understand this. In the meantime, if you need help, we're always here to help. Academic coaching for world changers. I'm Coach Sherry, but there's others. You can pick me, you can pick someone else, you can even request Dr. Pam. But in the meantime, have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are and whatever time it might be. Remember, Dr. Pam is the leading expert on clinical test taking strategies. I'm Coach Sherry, and I'm out.